What are we watching here?
Last time.
Star Wars Legacy.
Is that me?
Cats, I'll tell you what to do, cats.
Hello everyone, my name is Brian and welcome back to Barb's Basement. I hope that you guys have been well. I apologize for not getting back to you sooner. Barb has only grown more demented as time has gone on, forcing me to watch the non-special edition version of the Darth Vader and Palpatine phone call on loop. The melted candle face of Palpatine has become almost a comfort to me. It was a welcome relief from hearing Barb panting heavily as she listened to me turning the pages. In case you missed last week's issue of Legacy, there should be a link in the upper right hand corner right about now. Feel free to go and check that video out before you watch this one, that way you don't miss out on anything. So this week we leap right into the action. Cade rushes into battle carrying Marasia's lightsaber. Nihl, his father's murderer, tells him that picking up a fallen lightsaber does not make him a Jedi. Depressingly, Nihl doesn't even really realize who Cade is, and why he hates him so much. Nihl has constantly inhabited a portion of Cade's thoughts, and Nihl couldn't care less about who he is. Despite this, Talon can feel the Force blazing inside Cade, warning Nihl to be careful. Cade tells the Imperial Hand that he was trained on Ossus and he watched Nihl kill his father. Nihl remarks that he's killed a lot of dads, he must be more specific. I guess that's why my dad never came back from picking up those cigarettes. Then, idiotically, Cade tells all of the Sith present that his father was Jedi Master Kol Skywalker, revealing that he is also a living Skywalker. What a dipshit. Nihl is clearly taken aback by this. I mean, look at his shocked little face. He tells Cade that vengefulness is not the Jedi way, while swiping at Cade with his saber staff. Seriously, his staff and all of the Sith lightsabers in this series are super dope looking. I like how they're all uniform, but they all kind of look Vong-like in appearance. Cade tells Nihl that he's actually a pretty nasty Jedi, carrying so much hate in his heart for the Sith for 7 years. Wolf, coming to fight alongside his former Padawan, tells him that he cannot defeat the Sith with anger. That is a Sith weapon, and it will only pull at his heart, taking him deeper into the hate until it consumes him. Cade is still blinded by his seething hatred of the Sith. Meanwhile, Shadow is dueling with Darth Talon. He tells her that her mission has failed, and Marasia is dead. Weird flex, but okay. Talon tells him regardless, she will serve her purpose. With all of them dead, Roan Fel will never know that his daughter was actually slain, and she will still entice him out of hiding. He tells her that her plan has a flaw. She assumes that she can kill him. Then they continue to Has fight, and then across the battlefield, Draco is standing over Marasia's body and tells the Sith they will not touch her. One of the Sith asks him who they are to deny them anything. And then, once again, someone just shouts out their title and full name with woeful abandon. He is Gander Krieg, Knight of the Empire, and the Sith betrayed the one true Emperor, and he will have his revenge. Jesus, man, you might as well just give him a business card with your blood type on it. He will leave nothing but bones for the beast to crack. Solid line. Draco is holding onto Marasia's body and asks her why she would sacrifice herself for the likes of Kade Skywalker. She then whispers Draco's name. He is obviously ecstatic and shouts out that the princess is still alive. Rushing to the ship, Wolf tells the knight that he will cover his escape. As Draco flees with Marasia, Wolf calls to Cade, who is still neck deep in his battle with Nihl. He tells Cade that Nihl is too much for him and that he can't take him all by himself. This isn't Ossus, and Cade isn't running. This time he will stay and fight off the Sith as long as he can. Darth Nihl tells Cade to listen to the Jedi Master's advice. He is no match for Nihl, but he will grant him the mercy of a quick death if he lays down and takes it just like his father did. Sexual innuendos. In a real case of my dad can beat up your dad, Cade tells Nihl that it wasn't an easy death. It took a dozen Sith Lords to take his father down. Nihl destroyed his life and took everything he ever loved from him. He will kill Nihl. On a quick tangent, Nihl is probably my favorite member of the One Sith Order, and probably one of the standout characters for the entire series. He is also one of the few Sith to be chosen to join the Order that was not born into their school of thought. He was so powerful in the Force as a warlord on Nagi that he was recruited to join the One Sith. Despite the One Sith being very xenophobic of outsiders, he was still quickly promoted to the position of the Emperor's Hand. Tangent over. Back on the Minox, Sin and the crew are alerted. They have wounded. Draco and Wolf make it on board and quickly place the princess on a medical bed. Wolf, knowing that the princess is safe, wants to rush back out to help Cade. Draco, not being able to assess the situation, tells the Jedi that he swore an oath to the Emperor and to her to protect the royal family. Wolf is like, cool, well, I didn't do that, so bye-bye now. Besides that, why should he care about the Emperor when he was the man responsible for the massacre of Ossus? Why should he help the Empire that destroyed the Jedi Order? Draco reveals the massacre was carried out against his explicit orders. Imperial or not, he asks if her life matters at all to Wolf. Being a dutiful Jedi, he tells the Imperial Knight that he will do what he can to save her from death. He tells Draco to go and protect the ship so Cade and the gang can make it back safely. Outside the Minox, Cade is still in his fiery duel with Darth Nihl, but a blaster bolt hits Nihl right in the chest. Sin still came to the aid of his longtime friend, despite his horrible, horrible prejudices. Kade asks Sin if he changed his mind about Jedi. Sin tells him not to get it twisted. He may hate the Jedi, but the Sith are clearly the bad guys. I mean, come on, they all have tattoos all over their face and are wearing black clothing. They look like they're out the crow. Kade tells Sin not to worry. He still knows that Sin hates all Force users equally, but you should never shoot a Sith if you aren't sure that he will die. Sin would have killed him if he would have stopped dancing for just a second. Darth Nihl force pushes Sin and tells him that he will take one fool at a time. Kade swipes at Darth Nihl, and Darth Nihl does an epic backflip to avoid the death blow. But before Nihl can land on his own 2 feet, Kade gives him a taste of the good old-fashioned boot. Darth Nihl falls down a mountain, the Hound style, never to be seen again. I'm just kidding, he comes back pretty quickly. Kade tells Sin to stop messing around, telling him to calm to Delilah to have her fire up the engines. They are getting off this backwater planet. Sin admits that he's been trying to leave the moment Kade stepped off the ship. Kade knows that Delilah is literally too dumb to realize that Kade is bad news. Shadow decides to take a break from his intense duel with Darth Talon to talk some shit on Kade and tell him that he doesn't have the skills to fight alongside him. Kade decides to throw some of his own shade, telling Shadow to either finish her off or marry her. Talon throws some force lightning at the crew and Shadow deflects it. They leap onto the Minox ramp. Talon tries to leap on board to continue the fight with multiple force users, which is a questionable decision at best. Draco, still angered that Marcia was nearly killed off by the Sith, pushes Talon from the ramp down to the cold hard ground below. Talon, knowing that she has fully failed, panics and tells Nihl to scramble the ships and to give chase to the fleeing Minoc. Nihl knows that this is a useless effort. By the time they get to their ships, the Minoc will already be in hyperspace. And in this universe, there is no such thing as hyperspace tracking. There is nothing left for her to do but to report her feelings to Darth Krayt. Once she does, he is certain that Krayt will kill her, and he will once again be the one and only hand of the Sith Emperor. Back in the Minoc, Kade asks if the ship is ready to leap into hyperspace. Delilah asks if she has ever let Kade down. Draco is desperate to save Marcia's life. He implores the crew to set a course for Bastion. Sin is not down for this idea. He tells the Knight that they just escaped the Sith. Why would they go right back into Sith Imperial space? Draco tells him that the Sith no longer control Bastion. The one true Emperor has taken back their homeworld. It's the only safe place that they can go that has Bacta tanks and skilled healers to keep Marcia alive. The best course is plotted, but it will take some time to get them there. They can only push the engine so far. Draco is full on desperate at this point. He knows that Marcia only has a very limited amount of time left. He will do everything that he can to help the Jedi save the princess. Shouting instructions to the crew, he tells them to get every bit of speed they can out of this rust bucket. Ganner regretfully tells Draco that the Jedi are much more skilled and the princess is still dying. Draco is in a crazed state at this point. He tells his fellow knight that he can join the Jedi and he can help save her. It must work. Ganner tells him that it's useless at this point. There's nothing they can do to save her. Even though she's on the brink of death, she tells Draco not to fear her death. She isn't dying in fear. She tells Draco that the Jedi and the Imperials have to join forces if they are ever going to squash the threat of the one Sith. If he wants to restore the Empire to its former glory and restore their honor, he has to help right the wrongs they made. Amongst all of the chaos, Kade tells Draco that he can help her. Draco looks full on insane at this point, shouting at Kade that he is the reason why she is dying in the first place. It doesn't matter that he is a Skywalker, he has to keep his filthy, grubby pirate hands off of her. Draco winds back and cold cocks Kade right in the teeth, sending him flying into some barrels. Draco, with some real classism, tells Kade to look at his life and to look at hers. She's of royal blood, a real fancy Lord Fauntleroy, and Kade is living in filth and is a drug addict. She gave her life for the greater good of the galaxy, while Kade ran away from his birthright as the de facto beacon of hope for the Jedi. What has he done with his life that is worth her sacrifice? Kade, clearly not realizing how to de-escalate a situation, pulls out his blaster and tells Draco that he said he would help. Nothing calms down a room like pulling out a gun during an argument. Both of the Imperial Knights ignite their lightsabers as Shadow ignites his. Shadow tells everyone that there is no reason for them to fight. Draco tells Shadow that he deludes himself if he thinks that he is any match for one Imperial Knight, let alone two. Shadow in that moment decides to start his very own Versus channel. That is an interesting theory. Astral is the voice of reason in the center of this macho testosterone-fueled debate, telling Draco that she understands how deeply he feels for the princess, but no amount of punching holes in Jedi faces will save the princess at this point. They have tried everything, and it won't hurt to let Kade have a whack at healing Marcia. Wolf picks a very intense moment to ignite a Philosophy 101 class, and asks Kade if the Force wills it, who is he to bring her back to life? Kade, being the argumentative student that he is, asks what if the Force wills it that he saves her? Wolf knows the answer to this little train car question. He knows that Kade shouldn't, because he has to draw on the dark side to heal. That is imposing his will on the Force, not living by the will of the Force. He cannot live in the light if he is constantly pulling shadows around him. Would the princess want to be saved if Kade has to use the dark side to do it? Kade asks Wolf if he is listening. Marcia is clearly the one they are looking for. She'll be the one to unite the Jedi and the Knights against the Sith and bring balance back to not only the Force, but to the galaxy. Who would everyone be more willing to follow? Kade, a loner with a drug problem, or a princess who is dutiful and kind? Wolf tells Kade there's no good reason why he should have to call on the dark side. He can be trained. There's no time for this. By the time he's trained, the princess will be 100% dead, along with all hope for a united galaxy. How does Wolf know that he isn't meant to take life back from death by touching the dark side? Does that make him as much of a monster as the Sith that they all hate so much? The Sith that wrought destruction and evil upon the galaxy? Will Wolf and Shadow strike him down for saving a life by using the dark side? Wolf tells Kade that he will not stop him. Maybe it is his destiny to heal through the dark side. However, just because he can doesn't mean that he should. Kade thinks of it as more of a debt collection. He's paying back the princess for saving his life, and no one dies for Kade. Not again. But that being said, he goes to work. With all the crew and the Imperial Knights and the Jedi watching, he ignites Force Lightning, diving deep into the dark side of the Force. He brings Marcia back from the brink of death, just as he did his master 7 years earlier. As Kade dives deeper and deeper into the dark side, Estrel in amazement shouts, "The princess is alive!" And Teres rushes to her. Like a dream, her death was fleeting, passing as quickly as it had come. Her wounds were almost healed. As the group looks on in disbelief, Kade slowly stumbles into the cargo hold. Wolf calls to him with no response. Wolf tries to comfort his former Padawan, telling him that he can sense how close he came to being devoured by the dark side. But despite all that, in this moment, it almost feels like he's not in the Force at all. It's like when he closed himself all those years ago in Ossus. He is totally gone in the Force, as if he took the princess's death into himself. Kade looks just like he did all those years ago, a frightened young Jedi, lost in something that he doesn't fully understand, in the fetal position. He tells Wolf to leave him alone, to never speak to him of this again. His eyes are crimson yellow, he is fully gone into the dark side, allowing himself to take in the death of another. The crew make it safely back to Bastion. The Empire welcomes the Minot crew with open arms, telling them they can stay as royal guests. Kade is sleepless, unable to rest after his brush with the dark side, but he has something on his mind, and that something is fleeing from his responsibilities once again. Leaving Delilah's bed, he has a backpack and he's ready to bail. Wolf knows his Padawan more than he knows himself. He waits for him by the landing pad and asks Kade what will become of his friends. Kade knows that Sin and Blue will get by just fine without him. Delilah held the Minot together even as they were fleeing from murderous Sith Lords, and he can no longer fully trust Sin now that he knows his heritage. If he leaves, it removes a burden from not only himself, but also from Sin and Delilah. Kade asks if Wolf and Shadow will take the Empire's offer for Haven and an alliance. Wolf tells Kade that despite the pleas of Estrel, they have to refuse the Emperor's offer. Everything changed after Ossus. The Jedi can never go back to trusting the Empire after everything they had done to cull their ranks. And this is something that I actually find very, very interesting about this entire time period. So not only did the Empire defeat the Galactic Alliance and therefore the Jedi, they were also willing to basically extend an olive branch to them and to create a pact, a truce, something that the Empire of old would have never done. And despite all this, Roan basically fell victim to the Moff Council. They chose to kill the Jedi against Roan wishes. But if the Sith had never come into play, there was always a chance the Empire and the Jedi probably could have gotten along, and the Jedi could have coexisted alongside the Imperial Knights. But Kade agrees, saying that Ossus changed everything for him as well. It isn't just Wolf there. Shadow is also there, waiting in the shadows. Pun not intended. He asked Kade if the repairs had been made to the ship. And say what you want about the Empire, they are efficient. Kade, in a gesture of kindness, asks the Jedi if they need a lift off-world. Since they have no intentions of taking the Empire's offer, they would be grateful for a lift. Kade tells them they shouldn't get any ideas of him rejoining the Jedi. This is his ship, and therefore his rules. Shadow, ever the shit talker, asks Kade if he's a better pilot than the last time they saw one another. To be fair, the last time he saw him, his X-Wing did blow up. As they leave Imperial space, Kade tells Shadow that he's a funny Jedi, and people don't like funny Jedi. Shadow tells Kade that he isn't really sure that anyone really likes Jedi these days. Back on Coruscant, Talon makes her final approach to the Sith Imperial capital. Within the Sith Temple, Krayt sits on his throne, ready to pass judgment on a willing Darth Talon. She is ready to die. Here we get a juicy little bit about Krayt. He tells Talon that even though she has failed, she still passed knowledge on to him. He is now aware there is yet another Skywalker. Not only does Kade live, but he is also very powerful in the Force. His Imperial snitch Russ has informed him that Roan has taken back Bastion. While this is unfortunate, he's also learned that Skywalker healed the princess's wounds, so he is indeed very powerful. Krayt questions if maybe he should have ended the Skywalker bloodline when he had the chance. Perhaps it was the will of the Force that he did not, alluding to Krayt's origins. And I'm assuming that most of you guys actually know Krayt's origins, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone who does not. But hint, hint, wink, wink, I would go back and read some of the Clone Wars comics. Talon, desperate to get back on the good side of the Emperor, asks him if he wishes for her to end it now. Krayt tells her that instead of ending it, he wants her to bring the young wayward Jedi to him. He will be very useful to the Emperor, as her master wishes. As he always wishes. Thus concludes this week's issue of Star Wars Legacy. I hope that you all enjoyed this episode. So for those of you who don't know, Ned Alliance and myself are going to be starting up our very own podcast. I know that everyone and their uncle has a podcast, but this one is ours, and it's very special. Every week we'll be talking about various Star Wars and nerdy topics. Who knows, we might talk about movies, comics, shows, or Lord of the Rings, or whatever. Every week we'll be taking your questions. That's right, your questions. Feel free to join the Barb's Basement Discord to get your questions in the next episode of Now This is Podcasting. The link to that Discord will be in the description below.